How strong is the fire dragon slayer known as Natsu? To get a clear grasp of Natsu's power, we first need to indicate the cosmology he operates in to be able to justify where certain feats/statements scale. The Earthland universe, also known as Earthland cosmology, is the primary setting of the story and is described as an infinite spacetime continuum. Within this vast structure exist infinite timelines, each representing a different possibility or outcome. These timelines are not just theoretical concepts, but actual, physical worlds. This is supported by the diagram, which illustrates how various potential futures branch off into distinct timelines. One clear example of this is the timeline from which future Rogue originates, further confirming the physical nature of these alternate timelines. Therefore, there would exist infinite timelines within the Earthland cosmology, and each of these timelines would be infinite spacetimes continuums. Here are a few examples of different timelines/outcomes. This would make the cosmology multiversal plus. Although, we can go even higher. Affecting the Earthland timeline directly impacts all other timelines that branch from it, indicating that Earthland has the ability to overwrite these alternate timelines. This idea is further supported by the actions of future Lucy, who sacrificed herself to protect Earthland Lucy. Her decision was based on the understanding that if Earthland Lucy were to die, it would have consequences across all versions of Lucy in different timelines. In contrast, the death of future Lucy, or any Lucy from a separate timeline, would not affect Earthland or the others. This clearly supports the notion that Earthland serves as the foundational timeline, capable of overriding all others that diverge from it. Which is again further proven as killing Rogue from main timeline would overwrite and destroy all Rogue from other timelines including future Rogue. But when future Rogue was killed, it had no effect on main timeline Rogue. Here is another diagram that explains this put simply. In summary, this would mean Earthland is the starting point, timelines branching off from it overwrites all branched timelines, which would necessitate for being a hypertimeline. A hypertimeline being a timeline that is always a dimensionality above its branched timelines, as it allows movement from one timeline to another while overriding them and connecting them together. Earthland being a hypertimeline to 4D timelines would make it a 5D hypertimeline, which would make Earthland a low-complex multiversal cosmology. Now onto the Natsu scale. Skipping a few arcs, we arrive at the Tower of Heaven arc, where Natsu faces off against Jalal. Throughout their battle, Natsu consistently demonstrates power relativity to Jalal, implying that he scales to him. Jalal, in turn, has showcased the ability to create a microcosm, a black sphere containing infinite darkness, with properties resembling an infinite spacetime structure. This construct fits the definition of a microcosm, further highlighting the scale of power Natsu contends with. This would scale Jalal to high universal or universal plus, which is consistent as it is stated that his power matches the universe, which I indicated to be an infinite spacetime continuum prior, which would give Natsu at this stage universal plus attack potency. Despite it being an arc early on within the series, there is still more. Natsu goes on to consume Ether Ion, which is described as a magic of destruction which transcends spacetime. With destruction in reference to its country-level destructive capacity and the transcending spacetime part in reference to its attack potency/power, as its destructive capacity was just affirmed prior. Ether Ion transcending spacetime is consistent as its magic power is compared to constructs like the Eclipse Gate, which connects 2 points in time as well as crosses over timelines. Natsu eating Ether Ion allowed him to gain its power, therefore unlocking his Dragon Force state. Power transcending spacetime would be 5D power, which is low complex multiversal attack potency. So far we have established that Natsu has universal plus to low complex multiversal attack potency with country-level destructive capacity. The next arc to discuss is the Celestial Spirit Realm arc, where Natsu and his friends confront the Celestial Spirit Beast, a powerful entity threatening to destroy both the Celestial Spirit Realm and Earthland. The Celestial Spirit Realm is described as having its own unique time flow and is also stated to be infinite in size. During the battle, Natsu manages to get inside the Celestial Spirit Beast, where he states it looks like a universe. Later on it gets shown that there is multiple stars within the Celestial Spirit Beast, which could potentially prove Natsu's hypothesis correct, as it is depicted as a universe. Although at the very least it would be solar system in size. Natsu then blows up a planet in order to save the Celestial Spirit King, which is easily a planetary level destructive capacity feat. Although not only that, but Natsu then goes on to blowing up, the entire Celestial Spirit Beast from inside, Now on to the more important stuff, being the space between time, aka the SBT. This is the source of magic power for two top tiers within the verse known as Zeref and Acnologia. The SBT is described as unimaginable magic even by the likes of Zeref, who studied time in great depth and created structures like the Eclipse Gate, which transcends time. The SBT being unimaginable makes sense, as it is affirmed to be the modifying force of the concept of time, indicating the transcendence to the concept. The SBT is a magical structure of nothingness, by nothingness there entailing what is encompassed within it. There is no light or darkness, no discernible traits at all. Which would be indicating that there is no space within the SBT, and if there's no space, then there is no space for time to flow, meaning there is no time within the SBT, thus why it's stated to being more like a concept, which fits perfectly with everything I indicated prior. Users of the SBT obtain space-time magic from it. With even Zeref further backing up the affirmation of the space-time magic transcending the concept of time. Also, the SBT would transcend the concept of time and space via duality of transcending the concept of time. In summary, the SBT is an unimaginable conceptual magical structure of nothingness that holds space-time magic transcending the concepts of space and time. This would qualify for outerversal power, in which Natsu matches multiple times with his battles against them, even overpowering Zeref with his flame's root of magic, which I will get into later. Although it doesn't end there. Going into 100-year quest, we get introduced to the Moon Dragon God, a being who is comparable to Acnologia in power. Selene, also known as the Moon Dragon God, is one of the 5 dragon gods that inhabit the continent of Giltina, as well as the current guild master of Diabolos. Selene's power and traveling capabilities are stated to transcend dimensionality. For us to actually validate where these consistent assertions scale, we would need to scale the cosmology, as there are statements you can use to get it higher than just 5D, which is the tier I scaled it to at the start of the video. There exists an infinite array of transdimensional dimensions. The concept of an infinite array of dimensions is well established in mathematics, particularly within the study of vector spaces. Infinite array of dimensions refers to a space that requires an infinite number of independent directions to describe all its elements. This concept is fundamental in various areas within said study, including functional analysis and quantum mechanics. The translation states infinitely expanding multiverse, which correlates perfectly with the translation being infinite array, as infinite dimensions equals multiversal and array equals infinitely expanding. This is a common structure that arrays normally follow, with an array being a structured collection of elements organized by one or more indices, i.e. dimensions. The dimensions have a different set of coordinate axes, as he states, the coordinate axis of this world, basically implying that it differs from world to world, i.e. different dimensional world to different dimensional world, and going off the concept of infinite array of dimensions would make this the most coherent sequitur for that phrasing. And Selene being able to send you to another plane of existence, i.e. another dimensionality, backs this up further. Just for a quick summary on what has been validated. There exists other planes of existence in the form of an array of transdimensional dimensions which are infinite in amount, with each dimension having its own different set of coordinate axes up to infinite, making this out to be infinitely expanding multiverses. This would validate the cosmology being on the level of high hyperversal, which is not only backed up by narrative but also by how and which kanjis are used. Selene transcending dimensionality would therefore scale her to low outerversal. This would apply to Natsu because Suzaku beat human form Celine and Natsu went relative with Suzaku giving Natsu low outerversal attack potency from this feat. Now that we got attack potency part out of the way, time to get into hacks and speeds. Gonna keep the speed scale short, since this video is supposed to be more about Natsu's powers and abilities. Natsu early on within the series was comparable to Jalal in magic power, with magic power being directly correlated to all your stats. Jalal had the ability to send down 7 stars which were calced to be at 3.8 billion times FTL, which is very consistent within the story. This would make Natsu be FTL in Tower of Heaven arc in base without any multipliers. Given that majority of the cast gets upscaled by the BFTL to MFTL speed feats, it only makes sense for the author to take it up a notch. Natsu moved in a stop time. The celestial spirit king crossing between 2 infinite universes in finite time. Zeref transcending time itself. Acnologia recreating the SBT before Anna and Ichiya got erased. And yes, Natsu would scale to all these immeasurable speed characters. Now with that out of the way, let's move on to hacks. Natsu is able to eat magic, not just fire magic. Similar to other dragon slayers that don't just eat their respective element, magic is both spiritual and natural energy, and Natsu is not only able to eat this but even able to eat the form of energy that shouldn't correlate with his magic by changing himself into a vessel fit for consuming said energy. Natsu has to scale to the form of energy that he eats, and when he does so, a higher percentage of the energy he ate manifests with his magic to boost its potency. So if Natsu eats energy and he only scales to 1% of its power, he can train to scale to a higher percentage of its power later on. So far the energies he has manifested with his own flame is Igneal Flames, Laxa's Lightning, God Slayer Flames, Ether Ion, Atlas Flames, Ignea Flames, and Darkness Flames. Natsu, using Igneal's Flames pre-enhanced, was able to burn Zeref's magic itself, with itself referring to the root of magic for his power, with root of magics being purely abstract and conceptual, meaning Natsu with unenhanced flame was burning sources of power that were purely abstract and conceptual, furthermore pushing Zeref to the brink of death despite him being an immortal. And not only that, but it has been stated that to murder Zeref you need to erase his concepts of life and death. Yet Mard Gear, who is able to erase a being's concepts of life and death, could not murder Zeref, meaning Igneal Flames was able to kill a being who is unaffected by being erased on the conceptual level, giving unenhanced Igneal Flames layered conceptual existence erasure. Moving on to hacks resistances, Natsu would still be severely OP as he was able to withstand and override the pinnacle of magic, which would be above magic that erases you on the conceptual level, which would mean Natsu has resistance to being erased on the conceptual level. Onto the more passive hacks that aren't as OP as the ones I mentioned prior, but they're still noteworthy. Natsu Flames can burn for 400 years. Natsu Flames in base without multipliers is 200 million degrees. Natsu doesn't need a physical body to operate. That would be the end of this video. In conclusion, Natsu has 5D to outerversal attack potency with layered conceptual existence erasure as well as other noteworthy hacks. With 3.8 billion speed on a low ball if you're not using his immeasurable speed metas and only using his Season 1 version without adding any multipliers.
I can make it in my sleep, straight up. Sound team breaking out the P. Oh God. 18 start selling hard a little B. $100 thief, I will look from D. Riding down Glenwood, tank on E. All about the money, I ain't never smoke weed. Cool young niggas still take your cheese. Pussy not mine, this bitch for us.